Take one.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Cole. I work on VLs, a lot of VLs. Skittles! Me and my dog Skittles work on VLs.
You ready to work?
You ready to go to work?
Ready to go to work? All right.
So I work on mine mostly. I work on other people's, but I pretty much work on VLs every day. And once you do something like that, you learn a few things. I don't know everything about a VL. In fact, stuff we're going to go over today, you'll probably say, well, that's not how I do it. But I don't care. I'm old enough now that stuff rubs off. So if you don't believe I work on VLs, come look at this. There's a few non-VLs in here, some JDs, some panheads, shit like that. But they all run. Well, this one don't run yet. This is going to be my next chopper. So let me see this. That's Jose. Jose's doing the filming. Jose's world famous gasoline cowboy. I made Jose a gasoline cowboy chopper. Similar but different, and he's getting ready to go on a world tour, so make sure you follow Jose. So anyway, we go back to work.
Come on, Skittles, back to work.
This is the latest one. This is like my favorite bike to ride right now.
Oh yeah, I saw the post on that one. Beautiful.
Yeah, we'll fire it up later.
Okay.
All right, Skittle butt. So anyway, because I work on a lot of VLs, some people started finding out, and I'm not in business, but I work on a lot of friends' bikes, and plus my own. And then they got friends that got VLs, and they got friends that got VLs, so I started getting a lot of calls. And I was just telling a friend that most of the calls, everybody who gets their first VL especially, fights the clutch. So I try to help them and talk them through fixing their clutch and figuring out what's wrong over the phone. And the other thing they always fight is oiling system. You can say, do you understand the oiling system? Oh yeah, I do. And then you start talking and find out, now we got to start at the beginning. So I decided, well, when I get all them calls, it's really hard to describe stuff over the phone. So I'll have Jose make me a video of repairing a clutch, diagnosing, troubleshooting, and then we'll probably do this like in 2 parts or whatever. And so part 1, I got some clutches here. We're going to rebuild one, and then we'll get one of my Cannonball bike in here, which is like my test bike. I test motors and transmission stuff, and we'll pull the clutch off of it and put the one we just rebuilt on it, and so I can show you how to remove it, install it, what to look for, and all that good stuff. So we get started.
So what do we got here?
We got 2 clutches that I just went back in the parts bin and grabbed.
So what's the difference?
Well, half the time when I get an old bike in here and I tear it apart, the clutch is put together wrong. This one's put together right.
How do I know that's right?
This one's put together wrong.
I don't know the difference.
See these bosses?
Yes.
They got to be showing when the clutch is put together correctly.
Ooh, I don't see them.
Yeah, when we get torn apart and everything, you'll see it's kind of natural to want to put this center clutch pin over the top and put spring over one of those. And when we get pulled apart, I'll show you this middle spring is going to have Peyronie's disease because it's bent over, because it just don't work that way.
Okay.
The other thing, so clutch pack, clutch shells. When you get your clutch apart, one thing you want to look for is hopefully it doesn't have them ridges. You see those?
Yes.
And so what happens is when your clutch is in here, and when things get bad, it starts chattering, and over time it does that. Your clutch will never work smooth if you have those ridges. So junk pile. So I try to find clutch shells that those are nice, like this one,
Hello.
nice and straight. And the teeth are pretty good. These are not bad. There's a little round edge on the top instead of just pointed sharp. It's getting hard. No one makes this stuff. You can get this piece sometimes and rivet it into another clutch shell, but no one's really makes this clutch shell that I'm aware of anyway. So whenever I go to swap meets, I'm buying this junk shit, and I may buy a whole bunch of shit just for this because it's good. The other thing is the bearing area in here, but you can clean that up and you can use oversized rollers if needed. I've found that it's not that critical, the clearance there. In fact, I know it sounds stupid, but a little wobble makes it shift better. So to get one of these apart, you got to have a way to compress this so you can get these screws out. A long time ago, I made a tool to do it. And I made this with a hacksaw and some grinders. And it works good, and it's ugly. But when we get together, you'll see. So I got this, and then eventually, somebody made me one. All nice, machined. And then, I don't even know where I got this one. I might have made this one. A different style, which you'll see. And then, talking to my buddy, Rob Nussbaum, Retro Cycle, plug. He says, well, you know, you can take this pressure plate, you can turn it over, you can put a bolt through there and squeeze it and do the same thing as this. It's like son of a bitch. I mean, son of a gun.
Bleep.
Who knew that? And so I tried it once and it works really well, but I don't want to mess up these because if anyone's got any, I could use a couple more of these. So anyway, so we're going to put my tool in here. And my homemade tool. We're going to get this thing apart. And I know, like I say, it might look cheesy, but so the idea is to squeeze these springs, but have access to your 6 bolts there, which you can see when we get things out. So luckily, however it worked that I made this, I don't have to use a backup. The nut bites in on the back side, so I can get this squeezed in enough to get the screws out. And what I'd like to see how these screws start pointing out? Once you get there, what you don't want to do is try to take these screws out without compression. You will screw up the heads and you'll screw up some other things, which I'll show you once we get this apart. So, next trick, and there's probably some power tool I could use to make this quicker. But we'll get all these screws out. Looky there, there's a foo bar on that screw, so it's junk. But what I really wanted to show you on these screws, see the little shoulder on the screw? Mm-hmm. Okay. There's a little shoulder in there too. It's dirty, you can't see it.
Oh.
But so when you're turning it, it bites. So every half turn, it bites. And that's important when we get to putting it together. Getting the last screw out, and as I'm taking them out, I'm noticing some weird stuff going on. You can see that's chewed up. Another one's chewed up. And I noticed when I was putting this compressor on that, and I'll show you here. So we'll get this back off now. We got all 6 screws out.
Another one messed up.
And it really bums me out that some of the screws are messed up because I don't have a lot of them. I got, well, depends on what you mean by a lot. I've got a few, but I just hate giving up good parts. If I can save the old ones, if that makes sense. So
Sure does.
all right, so we got this apart now. What I noticed when I was putting the compressor on is see that clutch sector. See how it's chewed up?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So when these are in here, that's to the inside. What that usually means is something has come apart and they just kept running it, which these things are tractors. Stuff can come apart and you still make them work. It's probably grinding gears and all that, but they were still going. So something got stuck in there between here and here and started chewing stuff up. And that's also what chewed up the screws. So we're going to pull these clutch sectors out. And you know, the terminology is different on a lot of stuff. I call them clutch sectors. And you see this spring's got what's called I call them a shoulder hat. Okay. Now they got this middle one stuck on that pin, which shouldn't be that way. We talked about that. And I'll show you what happens here if I can get them off. All right, that one's not bad. This one's, I mean, once you get them out, they don't have Peyronie's disease as bad as some I've seen. A lot of times when people put their clutches together wrong and they run them, this spring is bent all over like a crooked, you know what. So, some more clutch hats under the screws. We're going to pull this off and just dump them. Now, when we get putting it together, we're going to talk about these clutch hats and somewhat the function. So, that plate's a little worn, but doable. All right, so these are called the friction disc. And we'll clean this stuff up. These could probably be reused. And what I look for, and I can show you some bad ones, once the rivets start wearing out, you really need to change them. All right, so this has been sitting around a while. The friction plates, pretty rusty, cleaned up, but we'll get them cleaned up. If they're flat, we're going to reuse them. So, okay. Save that for later, so when we go, we'll put it together. Not terrible. I mean, I've seen a lot worse. It's had a repair done on that pin at some point. Oh no, that's just grease. Probably not the best thing to have grease in here where stuff slides. But, all right, so you don't know it, but me and Jose took a little intermission so I could clean some parts. But in the meantime, while we was waiting for the parts to get clean, I was talking with Jose about this bike behind me. And I thought, well, if you're watching this, you like VLs, so I just want to show a couple things. But this bike belongs to Jason Sims. Most all of you probably know Jason. And I end up working on every VL Jason finds, whether it's for himself or to resell, and we get them running here and stuff. And you've seen some of his videos if you follow any of his classic motorcycle consignment stuff. But this bike was for sale down in the Phoenix area for a long time. A few people knew about it. I couldn't believe it took so long to sell. But every time I looked at it, I'm thinking, it's a 36 VLD. This bike needs to be a VLH. It has to be a VLH. It's got all the 36 stuff. It just needed to be a VLH. So Jason, do you got any more cases? Well, I've got one set left, and I've done 4 or 5 motors for Jason now, and half of them came out of the Titanic. I've never seen such crusty junk. But he had this set of cases. It's VLH. We have a title, so we had to try to save the motor. The motor mounts were not broken. They were so corroded. They were just corroded off. So had to repair some motor mounts. We were able to save the other stuff, but because of the corrosion on the cases and everything, you couldn't really make it look really good, like say that motor over there, you know, prepped and cleaned like you would do in a restoration. So Jason said, let's paint it black. It's like, oh yeah, I got this new paint. It's called steel paint. It's weldable. It's the craziest stuff. I learned it from the guys that work on British bikes. They use a lot of it because it matches the paint on their frames and their handlebars and their brake calipers and stuff. So we got this motor, we rebuilt it. It's a VLH motor. I just was testing the motor mounts out where I did the work on them. And then I painted the cylinders steel paint. The steel paint comes in two colors, black and silver. And when you look at it together with this whole bike, once Jason gets it greasy, it's going to be pretty cool. So you can ignore the aluminum heads. This is an experiment, top secret shit. But one thing I wanted to show when we were tearing the motor out of this bike, Jason wants to ride this bike on a ride that we're getting ready to do with about 15, 20 other people up in the mountains. And we're going to be not only have to get up, we got to get down. So we got to have good brakes. And when we took this bike apart, we discovered where his brake rod mounts for the rear brake, it's about gone. I've never seen one this bad in, say, 100 VLs. But if he'd have had to do a panic stop or something, especially going downhill, lost his rear brakes, we could have lost Jason. That might not be a bad thing in some people's eyes, but I don't want to lose Jason. So I would suggest if you've got a VL, the primary cover hides this. So you don't really even see that. This rod is actually in backwards. It should be turned around, goes in from this side. The inner primary keeps this rod from coming out, and then you put the cotter key on the other side. But I would get a mirror, and I would look under there and make sure that you don't have the wear that this one does. I've had a lot of the brake rods that are almost broke off. They've just worn over time and get thin. But I've never seen one where this piece is worn out like that. So we'll get it fixed up. All right, so I got these parts cleaned up. These parts here, friction plates, the friction disc. And I'm going to reuse these. If I was building, this is just going to be a spare clutch. I'll probably throw it in a tote that we take on this ride, and if somebody's clutch acts up, we'll just swap the whole clutch out on this ride we're getting ready to do. So it'll be a spare. But these will be good enough for a bike that's going to be occasional use ridden around town. If I'm building a clutch that I'm going to sell, which I really don't sell any, I've sold a couple, or one for a distance bike, then I get there's 3 or 4 places you can get friction plates and clutch discs. Here's a plug for Competition Distributing. I've been buying these from them since Lonnie owned the business, and in my opinion, they're the best that you can get out there. The only thing I've ever had to do on them is when we get ready here, we're going to slide these in here, and they need to slide good, and this one does good. Sometimes I have to burnish the edges here to make them all slide good. Slide that easy, okay? So there's, like I say, there's 3 or 4 other outfits that make these, at least 2 others. I won't mention names. One brand they're just way too thick. And when we get this thing together and you're compressing the clutch, it's like 3/16 is all you've got for movement. So if the clutch plates take up a 1/16 or an 1/8 inch of that, now you've got half of that. And it really gets hard to adjust the clutch when you've got those plates that are too thick. You will recognize them. They're not riveted on, they're glued on, and you just look at it and it's thick. There's another outfit in Europe, but with the tariffs and everything, it makes it hard. Or you can find it. I believe these are probably NOS. packages that I have. Or you can, if you've got a lot of time, you can find this new old stock stuff with the rivets and the friction plates. And if you've got the right equipment, which I do, you can replace these and build your own set of new friction discs. My opinion is, for the price that you get from competition, I'm retired, I've got the time, but if I was in business, there's no way in hell I would rebuild my own friction disc. So as far as these other parts, looking over these screws, and you've seen that in part of the other video, I'll probably just replace them all. What you want to do is check the threads in all of these, because if somebody has tried to tighten them without compressing the springs, it's easy to strip these out. So this one here, that one's, in my opinion, probably stripped out. This is all, that one's stripped out. Junk pile. This one here, it's got that wear, really doesn't affect anything. I think the screws are probably fine, but barely. So there are vendors who sell these screws, these clutch sectors, springs, and the clutch hats. However, and I'd have to dig through the pile here. This is my spare parts that I don't have. So there's the screws. I don't want to pick on these guys. We all know them. These screws are too short. And sometimes the springs are wacko. So somewhere in my book, and I didn't prepare good enough to get that information out, is what these spring height's supposed to be and what the screw length's supposed to be. If you're taking apart an old clutch that's probably stock, another clue is if it's got them little tits on there. You probably got stock screws. There's one. And so you can just kind of do that and take a look. Now I'm not even going to pull these out of the pack and compare. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to need 6 good screws, 9 good springs. These springs here, not very scientific. I've got one that was in the middle that's got Peronis. Actually this one and this one. So there's 3 that I'm not going to reuse. So I'm not going to use these new ones on this one. So I'm going to dig out 3 good ones out of my pile here. Like I say, there is a measurement somewhere. You know, obviously when they've been used a lot, they're going to be shorter because they've been squished. But I bet we make it work. We've got a lot of squished ones. There we go. All right. Do I got 9 now, Jose? I do. All right. So you need 5 fingers or 5 hands sometimes, and to keep all these screws in here while we start assembling stuff. I know somebody showed me a better way to do this, and I don't remember what it was, so I went back to my old method, is where I cut little pieces of duct tape. I stick the screw in, and then to keep them from falling out while I try to assemble stuff, I just put a piece of duct tape over. So we're going to take this clutch hat, we're going to put this piece in, we're going to take a plate, and you want to make sure these plates slide nice like that. Okay, another clutch disc. In the meantime, we're trying to line these up best we can. Okay, and then another clutch plate. Now we're going to stick crap together. And we want the pins to show, remember? Line up them screws. Yay! All right. Now we're going to put the clutch hats over the ones with the screws for sure. As we know those are go there. And this one didn't have clutch hats on the bottom, it just had them on the top. When I pulled it apart, I didn't discuss that, but that's really what I saw. Okay, one over each screw. Now one in the middle of each one. When you're younger, your fingers work better, so I'm told. All right, spring over those for sure. Kind of see them on the clutch hats if you, all the feel thing. And then spring in the middle.
And those have the hat already at the bottom?
The screws get the hats.
Yep.
The middle ones don't. See, you can see almost how they're the same height because I got one on the bottom. And like I say, that shoulder will take up that difference.
Yep.
So I got to dig in my pile, find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hats. That's how many was short when we took it apart, which is pretty normal, been my experience. Yeah. Whoever gets this clutch gets some of my valuable clutch hats. Damn it. All right, now we're going to put the good sectors, semi-good in that case of this one. And we're going to dig through the pile. Ooh, that's a really nice one. All right. Now the frickin' fun part. Get my tool here. The better you line stuff up to start, the less you're going to fight it when we start putting the screws in. But there's a point where you just like, I got to do something here. So now with that height, I don't have enough room to get my washer on my tool. But we'll be fine. So get enough friction there to start squeezing it. All right. Get these lined up a little better. Squeeze it a little more. Okay, that's a good start. Now I can take screws back out. now we gotta put the screws in. You say, well, you just had them in there. Why'd you take them out? No, we gotta line stuff up. So I've got to squeeze this a lot so that all the springs are compressed. Squeezed enough I can get a screw started. So see that one, the screws are at the bottom and out. I'm not compressed enough yet. Getting close. All right, now it's bottoming out and that's enough, so I'll be able to get it started. Now, to get these started, you need to line stuff up best you can. Sometimes this is a real fight. So I use my trusty pick there. Get lined up. See it's sticking through there. Okay. It should be enough to get that screw started. I don't final tighten everything till I get them all in. So this is going to take me a bit to get them all lined up and started. So while we're under compression with this tool, we started the screws and see how easy they turn because they're compressed. And so what I look for is on the back side here, and I use this tool here to line them up and get started. I want a thread and a half showing. You don't need any more than that. So the way the manual describes it, once this is in the bike, you're set up like this to begin with. If you go to kick it over and the clutch slips, then you give each one of these a half turn until that goes away, and then that's ideal setting. The more you screw these in, the less clutch action you're going to have, so you don't want to go any more than you need to. And the book says, and I agree with it, thread and a half showing, and we'll be perfect at that point. So we've got all the screws started. I took a punch and a hammer and tried to line these up best I can so it'll slip in easy while we're under compression. And we'll take the compressor off now. Ouch! And then it would go in like this, and it needs to slide in. Yeah, we're not bad. One of them's sticking a little. Get the old brass hammer, always brass. Oh, look at that. That went in good. So when you can do that, okay, now we have a better chance of getting this together when we're on the bike. So at this point, we have I'll call it a refurbished clutch. I guarantee you it's going to work, especially if you pay attention when you're putting it on. So that's what we're going to do next, but that's how to get the clutch rebuilt and ready to be put on the bike.